What's up, YouTube? It's me, the Artisan MC, and today I'm going to give you my reaction to Agatha All Along, Episode 6. Well, I have to say that this episode by far was the funniest one to me that I've seen to this point. The reason being is that I laughed multiple times watching this episode, not because it was super funny, just because it was kind of comical and silly, which made me laugh. Maybe I was in a better mood. I don't know. It's just the way it happened. In this episode, you see the origin story of William Kaplan, known as the Teen, better known as Billy Maximoff. And you see the events that led to William Kaplan expiring and the presence of Billy Maximoff inhabiting his body and how that changed his family. And that's all you really need to know about that whole episode. It was a whole episode dedicated to this origin story for this one character. And understandably, you know why that is happening. Because Marvel has been working on introducing all their Young Avengers characters for a while. And this is one of the Young Avengers, one of the founding members of the Young Avengers. So they needed to give him a backstory at some point so they can have him in movies if they ever get around to doing the Young Avengers movie, show, what have you. So I don't know if it's overly interesting to go into, but I'll give you my impression of it. That William Kaplan is at his bar mitzvah. I believe is the correct term for it. He's a bat or a bar. Get which is which. I think it's bar mitzvah. While he's at his bar mitzvah party, he goes into the psychic palm reader's tent and he is met by Lilia. I think I'm saying her name right. So weird the way they pronounce it and the way they spell it. And she's there reading his palm. Now, when she reads his palm, she discovers that he has a divergent or split lifeline that inevitably means at some point he may die and another life will begin. Now, she gives him some, half-cocked story to not worry, but William is definitely a little concerned about this. But she lets him know that it's nothing really to worry about and sends him on his way. Now, Lilia wakes up kind of out of it, like she has been inhabited by different presences or whatever, talking to William, and doesn't really know who the kid is, but sees a jacket there and feels compelled to write a sigil on a piece of wood that she has and stick it in this coat. Now, she gives the coat to someone else to give back to the boy, even though she doesn't know who the boy was. And you pick up with the bar mitzvah being broken up because there is an issue in Westview. The anomaly that's happening in Westview, something is going on, so they need to evacuate. Now, this is where you understand that where they are is right outside of Westview. They're nearby in Eastview, funny enough. And while William and his family, Jeff and Rebecca, are leaving, they can see the hex, the large hex, and see it, shrinking or whatnot, as what we would know from watching the WandaVision show is that at the time, Agatha and Wanda are actually fighting inside the hex. Now, while they're distracted and watching the hex and not the road, the mother swerves to miss an oncoming vehicle and ends up off-road, spinning, and the car smacks into a tree, killing William on the spot when his head hits the side of the car window. Now, with Jeff and Rebecca freaking out, getting out of the car, trying to flag down a police officer, All of a sudden, William wakes up and immediately understands that his final thoughts were saying goodnight to his brother, and he wakes up in this place. Doesn't recognize the people, doesn't recognize the surroundings. For us as the audience who have seen WandaVision, understand that this is the point where Wanda started deconstructing the hex, and she kissed her boys goodnight. And when she left out the room, they dematerialized. They vanished. So, seemingly in that moment, Billy transferred into the body of William Kaplan. Now, after some time of being rescued and spending some time in a hospital, the doctor's passing off his condition as being amnesia. William Billy is able to go home with Jeff and Rebecca and starts to notice that he's hearing their thoughts. He's hearing what they're thinking. He's not really understanding it, but he's kind of getting the impressions that he's hearing what they're thinking. Now, there's a time jump of 3 years later, and 3 years later, we pick up with William Billy in the car with his boyfriend, or soon to be boyfriend, whatever. And they've just come back on a date, and we get the interracial homosexual kiss that I'm sure will set Geekdom or YouTube on fire. So what? It looks ridiculous. It just does. Like, teenage kisses always look ridiculous. If you've been a teenager, you understand why. This part is interesting in the sense that this is where William Billy finally confides in someone about what has happened to him, and he gets a big exposition dump about what he has learned in this 3 years since him coming home from the accident. What you find out is that he's been doing a lot of research to figuring out certain things, looking on Reddit and whatnot. And has pieced together some things that it was magic involved, witchcraft involved, and not an Avengers training exercise gone awry. And has met someone on a message board that has some information for him. And when him and his boyfriend go off to meet said person in a parking garage in the dark, their informative contact who knew what was going on inside of Westview, inside of that hex, turns out to be Boner 69, Ralph Boner. Now, this is the part that made me laugh the most, being that they brought this actor whose name I can't think of right now, but he plays Quicksilver in the X-Men movies. They brought him back. Little older, little furrier in the face, but it's still him, back playing the character of Ralph Boner. Now, it's funny to me because I like the actor and he was saying some funny lines, but at a point it got annoying as shit because the easiest way to describe it would be to say, if you've ever watched a DJ mix records between one and the other or scratching, and he's sitting there working the fader back and forth, that's the Boner was doing when he's trying to tell this story about what happened to him in Westview with the seriousness and the comedy. The seriousness and the comedy. It kept flipping back and forth, which was annoying because points in this, exposition dump that were interesting and needed to be held on a little bit were totally overridden by some ridiculous ass joke or comical moment. It's like, it was too much. It was too much going back and forth. It was actually making me a bit tired and irritated at that because it was happening so quickly. Like, was really into what this person was saying about the seriousness of it, and all of a sudden it switched into a off-color joke. It's like, so why am I listening to you? And that is a problem within Marvel sometimes, that they don't know how to balance out the seriousness without totally deflating it by throwing humor in where it doesn't belong. Anyway, Ralph Boner gives him a lot of information, and William Billy is able to read his mind and find out about Agatha Harkness and Wanda Maximoff and Wanda Maximoff's children, the twins, the speedster and the one that could read minds. So you have William Billy getting a little bit more information than he initially had. And once he goes back home and is actually piecing all of this stuff together, you end up having him look up Agatha Harkness on the internet and finding out more information about her. While the whole time in the background, um, Lorna Woo's song for The Witch's Road is playing in the background. Eventually, he hits on Agatha's picture. Some website gives the note that she is one of the only witches to survive the Witch's Road. At the same time, the song with the Witch's Road is playing, and this is where Billy devises his plan, that he's going to go to Westview and look for Agatha. At this point, you burn some time in the episode with old material because you're seeing now from the opposite side of what Agatha saw in the first episode. You're just seeing it from Billy's perspective. That she is basically like I said, walking around in her house thinking she is one thing, but everybody on the outside can see that this chick is freaking nuts. She thinks she has a gun on, but she has the garden hose sprayer stuffed in her pants and stuff. It's really silly. All the way down to the shirt she's wearing that says Boner Family Picnic, pitch a tent. Off color jokes. So you see it from William Billy's perspective of what he's seeing and how he starts breaking her out of her spell, the hex that Wanda put on her. All the way to the point where you see the first time he actually told Agatha his name. He actually said it, what he said his name was. And at this point, he admits that his name is, William Kaplan, but it's also Billy Maximoff. Agatha doesn't hear it, but he does say it. Now, from here, this is when we flash back forward to current times and see Agatha pulling herself out of the bog on the Witch's Road. Why she is not dead remains to be seen, especially since Rio is around. It just remains to be seen. Maybe she ain't ready for it yet. I don't know. Who we do not see is Lila and or Lilia and Jen. We don't see them. Agatha comes out, pulls herself out, and meets William Billy on the road, and they have a conversation. And Agatha pretty much fills in the blanks and understanding that she knew who he was when she saw her, but she wasn't sure, as she says, until later. And that now that she has said his name, he has said his name, all the witches will be able to hear him now because he used his power, which is a lot of power. Now, Agatha kind of goads him into figuring out what he is on the witch's roll for, because William Billy suggests that he does not actually need Agatha anymore, which I thought was kind of interesting because he couldn't have gotten onto the roll without a coven, and he didn't have one of those. So he did need her for a time. And he doesn't know where the hell he's going or what's going to happen next because he hasn't been here before. So maybe he does. Be that as it may, Agatha discerns that Billy is on this road looking for not power because he has it, but looking for a person, and the person being his brother, his twin, Tommy. Now, William Billy does tell Agatha that he doesn't trust her ever, which I think is common sense. None of the witches that came along trusted her either, but reasons. They decide to travel on together to the next trial, and that is the episode. Now, like I said, parts in this were funny to me just because they were so silly, right? Just because they were silly, it was kind of funny, which made me laugh, which doesn't mean it was overly hilarious. I just have to mark it honestly. Like, well, I laughed a few times watching this episode just because it was ridiculous. Yeah. I like the advent of seeing Ralph Boner again. And I'm forgetting the actor's name, but seeing the actor again was funny as hell to me. To see him show up in this again. Like, oh, well, maybe he can come back. Who knows? The rest of this, it seemed a little long. They could have cut out that whole part with him, his view of going to Westview and breaking Agatha out of the hex. Yeah, it was useful in a sense, just to prove a point that I had about how weird it must look to have this woman walking around this town with her own hex on her head, acting all weird, and people just looking at her like, yeah, she crazy. But, let her be. But to see that was kind of fun for me. Otherwise, the episode was little or nothing. I don't mind an origin story for Billy. I wouldn't say that's something I'm overly versed in. I'm aware of the character, lineage, all the rest of that stuff, the intricacies of a story. I didn't read Young Avengers a lot. I didn't. So it is what it is. But on the whole, it was a pretty straightforward episode. And in a week of watching episodes of origin stories for characters, this one doesn't hold up as good as the Sophia Falcone origin in Penguin. But yeah, it was comical. It's Disney. It is what it is. We did have a homosexual kiss for the first time in this. So I guess that is to be landmarked and understood what they're putting on Disney now. But whatever. So that's it. That is my review reaction to Agatha All Along, episode 6. It was an episode. We're almost done. So we got 2 more to get through. Like, share, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below if you want to talk about this. Or show up for the Hero's Journey on Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And we can talk about it then, of course. But that's it. I've been artisanmc, and I will see you next time. Peace.